The reservation at Marcello's was for 7:30, and I arrived exactly on time. The restaurant glowed with soft lighting and the buzz of wealthy diners enjoying their Saturday evening. My father's 60th birthday celebration, hosted by my brother Derek at what he'd called the most exclusive restaurant in the city. I spotted my family immediately. They'd taken the large corner table with the best view of the city skyline. Derek sat at the head with his wife Monica, both dressed in designer everything. My parents were to his right and my sister Amanda and her husband occupied the other side. The only empty seat was at the far end naturally. "Sarah," my mother called out as I approached. "Oh, you made it. We thought you might be working late at that restaurant you manage." "I made time for Dad's birthday," I said, hugging my father. "Happy birthday, Dad." "Thank you, sweetheart," he smiled warmly. Dad had always been kinder than the rest of them, even if he rarely stood up to their treatment of me. I took my seat and immediately noticed the champagne bottle. A $400 Dom Perignon according to the label Derek was showing off to the table. "Only the best for Dad," Derek announced. "This is what success tastes like. You wouldn't understand, Sarah, but one day maybe you'll get there." I smiled and said nothing. Derek was 34, worked in finance and made about $250,000 a year. He'd been insufferable about it since his first promotion. "Sarah, sweetie, are you still working at that Italian place downtown?" Monica asked with exaggerated concern. "The one with the red awnings?" "I work in restaurant management," I said simply. Right, Derek waved his hand. "Managing shifts and seating charts. Hey, no shame in it. Not everyone can handle high-level corporate strategy like some of us." Amanda giggled. "Remember when Sarah said she wanted to open her own restaurant? What were you, 22? 23, I corrected. "We tried to tell you it was unrealistic," Mom said gently. "The restaurant industry is so difficult. We just wanted to protect you from disappointment." "So you became a manager instead," Derek nodded approvingly. "Smart. Let someone else take the financial risk while you get a steady paycheck. Probably making what, $45,000? $50,000 if you're lucky?" The server arrived with menus, beautiful leather-bound folders embossed with Marcello's signature gold logo. I'd designed them myself when I'd rebranded all 12 locations last year. Derek snatched the menu from in front of me before I could open it. "Don't even look at the menu, Sarah," Derek laughed, holding it out of reach. "Everything here is at least $60 an entree. Water is free though." The family roared with laughter. Monica actually wiped tears from her eyes. Amanda held her stomach, laughing so hard she couldn't breathe. Even my mother hid a smile behind her napkin. My father looked uncomfortable but said nothing. "I'm serious though," Derek continued, still holding my menu hostage. "This place is seriously expensive. I'm treating everyone tonight because it's Dad's birthday, but Sarah, you should probably just order an appetizer. I know your budget is tight." "I can afford dinner, Derek," I said calmly. "Can you though?" He leaned back in his chair, supremely confident. "Monica and I ate here last month. Our bill was $600 for just the two of us. You're telling me you can drop $100 on a single meal? On a manager's salary?" "I said I work in restaurant management, not that I'm a floor manager," I clarified. "Same difference," Amanda shrugged. "You work for restaurants. Derek owns part of his firm. There's a hierarchy." The server returned, a young woman named Jessica who'd worked at the flagship location for 3 years. She was excellent, attentive without being intrusive, knowledgeable about every dish. "Good evening," she smiled professionally. "Have we decided on drinks or would you like a few more minutes?" "Bring another bottle of the Dom Perignon," Derek ordered. "And for my sister," he gestured dismissively at me, "just water. Tap is fine." "Actually," I said, "I'll have the Chateau Margaux 2015 please." The table went silent. "Sarah," Mom said carefully, "that's $800 a bottle." "I know," I said. "It's excellent with the Wagyu ribeye, which I'll also be ordering." Derek's face went red. "You can't afford." "I can afford whatever I want," I interrupted. "But thank you for your concern." "This is ridiculous," Derek sputtered. "You're going to bankrupt yourself trying to keep up with." The executive chef walked to our table, still in his whites from the kitchen. Chef Antoine Rousseau was a legend, Michelin-starred, trained in Lyon, and the creative genius behind Marcelo's entire culinary concept. He was also on my payroll. "Good evening," he said warmly to the table, then turned to me. "Ms. Mitchell, thank you for purchasing all 12 locations. Your expansion plan is brilliant." Choked on her $200 steak, the piece she'd been chewing lodging in her throat. Dad had to pat her back while she coughed and reached for her water. Derek's face went from red to white. "What did you say?" "I was thanking Ms. Mitchell," Chef Antoine continued, either oblivious to or enjoying the shock at the table, "for acquiring the Marcelo's restaurant group. All 12 locations across the state. The deal closed last month, yes." 3 weeks ago, I confirmed. "The final paperwork was signed on the 15th. Chef Antoine beamed. "And your plans for the new location in Harbor City? Magnifique. With the waterfront view, the expanded wine cellar, the private dining rooms. You have exquisite taste." "Thank you, chef. That means a lot coming from you." "I wanted to thank you personally," he continued. "The previous owners, they were always cutting costs, pushing for cheaper ingredients, faster table turns. But you understand that great food requires investment, time, passion. You've given me the budget to create something truly special. You deserve the resources to do your best work," I said simply. "That's what builds a reputation worth sustaining." Chef Antoine kissed his fingers. "This is why you are a true restaurateur, not just an owner. Now, I will prepare something special for your father's birthday. A 7-course tasting menu, paired wines on the house. To celebrate both his 60 years and your excellent judgment in acquiring these beautiful establishments." He swept back toward the kitchen, leaving a table full of people who looked like they'd been slapped. The silence stretched on. Monica stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Amanda's mouth hung open. Derek looked like he might vomit. "You." Mom finally managed. "You own Marcelo's. All 12 locations," I confirmed. "The flagship here in downtown, 3 in the suburbs, 2 in Riverside County, and 6 scattered across the state in major cities. Total acquisition cost was $47 million. Current annual revenue across all locations is about $63 million. Dad set down his fork carefully. "Sarah, when did this happen?" "The acquisition? Last month. But I've been in restaurant ownership for 7 years. I started with a single bistro when I was 23, the one you all refused to invest in or even visit. That unrealistic dream you mentioned, Amanda." Amanda looked at her plate. "I ran that bistro for 2 years, made it profitable, then sold it for 3 times what I paid. Used that money to buy 2 more restaurants. Then 4. Then 8. I built a portfolio of 16 independent restaurants before this acquisition." 16 restaurants? Derek's voice came out strangled. "Had 16. Now I have 12 Marcelo's locations instead. I sold the independent ones to finance the Marcelo's purchase. Better brand recognition, stronger market position, and Chef Antoine came with the deal. He's worth the price alone." I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, turning it so they could see the business account balance. $4.7 million. "That's liquid capital," I explained. "For operations, expansion, emergencies. The restaurants themselves are worth considerably more. Current estimated value of the Marcelo's chain is $68 million. I own it outright. No partners, no investors." Derek grabbed my phone, staring at the screen like it might be fake. "This can't be real." "It's very real. You can check if you'd like. Mitchell Restaurant Group. That's my holding company. I'm the sole owner and CEO." Jessica returned with my wine, pouring it with practiced grace. "Your Chateau Margaux, Ms. Mitchell. And Chef Antoine wanted me to tell you he's preparing the tasting menu now." "Thank you, Jessica. How's your mother doing? I heard she had surgery last week." Jessica's face lit up. "Much better, thank you for asking. And thank you for the time off and the flowers." She was so touched. "Of course. Family comes first. Take whatever time you need." Jessica smiled gratefully and headed to the next table. After she left, Derek found his voice. "You gave her time off? With pay?" "Her mother had cancer surgery," I said. "Of course I gave her paid leave. I also covered her mother's medical bills. $23,000. Jessica has been with us for 3 years and she's exceptional at her job. Good employees are hard to find. You take care of them." Mom's hands shook as she set down her wine glass. $23,000? You just gave her that money. I invested it in employee loyalty and morale, I corrected. Jessica will probably work for me for the next 20 years because she knows I value her. That's worth far more than $23,000. But how? Amanda finally spoke. How did you do all this without us knowing? You never asked, I said simply. Every Sunday dinner for 7 years, you all talked about Derek's bonuses and Amanda's husband's promotion and Monica's shopping trips to New York. When I tried to mention my restaurants, you'd change the subject or make jokes about my little food hobby. We thought you were a manager, Mom protested. You always said you worked in restaurant management. I do work in restaurant management. I manage 12 restaurants. I just happen to own them too. Derek's face had gone from white to purple. This is insane. You're 29 years old. Nobody builds a $68 million restaurant empire by 29. I did, I said. I worked 18-hour days for 7 years. I learned every position. Cooking, serving, hosting, managing, accounting. I slept in my car some nights because I was too tired to drive home after closing. I ate ramen for dinner while I invested every penny back into the businesses. I took a sip of my wine. It was perfect as expected. While you were buying designer suits and luxury cars, Derek, I was wearing the same 3 outfits and driving a 15-year-old Honda. While you were vacationing in the Maldives, Monica, I was negotiating with food suppliers and interviewing chef candidates. I sacrificed everything for this. Why didn't you tell us? Dad asked quietly. We could have helped. Been proud of you. Could you? I looked at him. 7 years ago I asked you to invest $50,000 in my first restaurant. You told me I was naive and that I should get a real job with benefits. You said the restaurant industry was a fool's game and I was throwing my life away. Dad's face crumpled. I remember. I asked Derek to be a silent partner. He laughed and said he didn't invest in waitress fantasies. Amanda, you told everyone at Christmas that I was going through a phase and would grow out of it eventually. I didn't mean, Amanda started. Yes, you did, I interrupted. You all meant it. You were convinced I would fail, so you never bothered to check if I was succeeding. And honestly, part of me enjoyed that. Every time you mocked my little food hobby while eating at my restaurants, every time you assumed I was struggling while I was building an empire, it was satisfying in a petty way. Chef Antoine returned with 2 servers carrying the first course of the tasting menu, a delicate amuse-bouche of seared scallop with citrus foam. For the table, he announced. To begin our birthday celebration. As they set down the plates, Derek stared at his scallop like it might poison him. This location, I continued, the flagship Marcello's that you chose for Dad's birthday because it's the most exclusive restaurant in the city. I approved your reservation personally. I recognized your name in the system and decided it would be interesting to see how you all behaved. Monica made a small whimpering sound. The bottle of Dom Perignon you ordered to show off? My wine steward recommended it because it pairs well with Chef Antoine's amuse-bouche course. The $200 steak Mom is choking on? I set that price point after analyzing our cost structure and market positioning. I looked at Derek. You were so excited to treat everyone to dinner at Marcello's. To show Dad how successful you are by spending money at my restaurant. The irony is almost too perfect. Sarah, Derek's voice was quiet now, deflated. I'm sorry. I've been a complete ass. Yes, you have. For years. I've mocked you, dismissed you, treated you like you were less than me. Yes. He looked at his untouched scallop. Can I ask why you're telling us now? You could have kept this secret forever. Because I'm tired, I said honestly. I'm tired of being invisible to my own family. I'm tired of listening to lectures about fiscal responsibility from people who've never built anything from nothing. And I'm tired of watching you all celebrate mediocre achievements while ignoring extraordinary ones. I set down my wine glass. Derek, you make $250,000 a year working for someone else's company. That's good money. I'm not diminishing it. But you act like you've conquered the world. I've built something that employs 340 people across 12 locations. I've created careers, not just held a job. I know, he whispered. Mom, Dad, you wanted me to get a real job with benefits. I created 340 jobs with benefits. Full health insurance, retirement matching, paid time off, education assistance. Because I remember what it's like to be the employee hoping the owner notices your hard work. Mom was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. And Amanda, you thought this was a phase. 7 years is a pretty long phase, don't you think? Amanda nodded, unable to speak. The second course arrived. Butter-poached lobster with truffle risotto. The table ate in silence, the food exquisite but tasting like ash in their mouths. Finally, my father spoke. What can we do to make this right? Stop assuming I'm failing, I said. Stop treating me like the family disappointment. And maybe, occasionally, ask about my life instead of just telling me about yours. We can do that, Dad said firmly. Starting now. Tell me about the Harbor City location. The one Chef Antoine mentioned. So I told him. About the waterfront property I'd found, the 200-seat dining room I was designing, the private event spaces, the rooftop bar. I told him about my expansion plans, my staffing strategies, my vision for making Marcello's a nationally recognized brand. And for the first time in 7 years, my family actually listened. By the time dessert arrived, a spectacular birthday cake created by our pastry chef, the atmosphere had shifted. They asked questions. Real questions, not dismissive ones. They wanted to know about challenges I'd faced, decisions I'd made, dreams I still had. Derek laughed during coffee, a real laugh, not a mocking one. I've been a complete idiot. Yes, you have, I agreed. As the evening wound down, Derek insisted on paying the bill. I let him, knowing the irony wasn't lost on him. He was paying me for the privilege of celebrating at my restaurant. At the valet stand, Dad pulled me aside. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. I should have said it 7 years ago. I should have believed in you, invested in you, supported you. I'm sorry I didn't. Thank you, Dad, I hugged him. That means a lot. As I drove home in my old Honda, I thought about the evening. It hadn't gone how I'd expected when I'd approved Derek's reservation. Instead of drama, I got acknowledgement. Understanding. The beginning of actual respect. My phone buzzed with a text from Chef Antoine. That was magnificent theater. Your brother's face when I mentioned the purchase. Priceless. Looking forward to Harbor City. You're building something special. I smiled. Yes, I was. And finally, my family was starting to see it. Tomorrow I'd get back to work. The Harbor City location wouldn't build itself. But tonight, for the first time in years, I'd enjoyed a family dinner. Maybe that was worth more than any restaurant empire.
Melissa will be a better mother than you ever were, Mark declared, tossing the divorce papers onto our kitchen counter. She's younger, more patient, and the kids already love her. I stood there, gripping my coffee mug so hard my knuckles turned white, but my voice remained steady. Is that what you really think, Mark? My name is Emma Parker, and at 35, I never imagined I'd be standing in my kitchen listening to my husband of 12 years explain why his 26-year-old mistress would be a better mother to our children. The kids need stability, he continued, running his hand through his graying hair. Your constant work trips, the late nights at the hospital, it's not fair to them. Melissa can be there full-time. I took a slow sip of my coffee, letting the bitter taste ground me. As an emergency room nurse, I learned to stay calm in crisis situations. This was just another emergency, albeit a personal one. And you think abandoning their mother is stability? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. Tell me, Mark, does Melissa know about your plans for my children? He shifted uncomfortably, adjusting his too-tight designer shirt. Another recent change since Melissa entered the picture. Our children, he corrected. And yes, she's excited about being their new mom. She's already looking at houses with better school districts. I set down my mug and pulled out my phone. That's interesting, I said, scrolling through my files. Because that's not what she told her friend Jessica last week at the cafe. Mark's face flickered with uncertainty. What are you talking about? You see, Mark, when our daughter Emily came home 3 months ago talking about Daddy's special friend who bought her ice cream, I started paying attention. And when our son Tyler mentioned that Melissa promised him a new gaming system if he kept their mall trips a secret, I started recording. I pressed play on my phone, and Melissa's voice filled our kitchen. God, no, I don't want his kids. They're so annoying, especially the little one. But Mark's loaded, and once we're married, I'll convince him to send them to boarding school or something. His wife's too busy saving lives or whatever to fight for custody. Mark's face drained of color. That's not real. You're making this up. I played another recording. Yeah, babe, Emma works tonight, Mark's voice this time. We can use the house. The kids are at my mother's. No, don't worry about them. Once the divorce is final, we'll figure something out. You won't have to deal with them much, I promise. There's more, I said calmly, watching his facade crumble. Like your conversation about using my work schedule against me in custody proceedings. Or Melissa's detailed plans for spending my children's college funds on her lifestyle business. Would you like to hear those too? Mark slumped against the counter, his arrogance deflating. How did you? I'm a mother, Mark. I pay attention. And while you were busy planning your new life with Melissa, I was protecting our children. Emma, we can talk about this, he started, but I cut him off. Oh, we will talk about this. Tomorrow with my lawyer. She's very interested in these recordings, especially the parts where you and Melissa discuss hiding assets before filing for divorce. I picked up the divorce papers he'd thrown at me. By the way, your mother called yesterday. Apparently, Emily told her about Melissa's promise to get rid of that old nurse so she could be their new mommy. Your mother was disturbed. Mark's face had taken on a sickly pallor. His mother, a former family court judge, had always been our biggest supporter. The thought of her knowing about his plans seemed to hit him harder than anything else. The kids, he began weakly, are staying with me, I finished firmly. And if you try to fight this, every recording goes public. I wonder how your medical practice partners would feel about their respected colleague plotting to abandon his children. I gathered my things, preparing for my hospital shift. You have until tomorrow to decide, Mark. Either we handle this civilly with joint custody and fair division of assets, or everyone learns exactly what kind of father you really are. As I walked toward the door, I turned back one last time. Oh, and Mark. Melissa's been seeing her ex-boyfriend Jason on the side. There's a recording of that too, if you're interested. I left him standing in our kitchen, surrounded by the ruins of his carefully constructed plans. My hands were shaking as I got into my car, but my mind was clear. I'd spent 3 months gathering evidence, protecting my children, and preparing for this moment. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark's mother. I'm so sorry, Emma. I've already called my lawyer friend. We'll make sure the kids are safe. Another buzz, this time from the hospital. Multiple vehicle accident incoming. All hands needed. I took a deep breath, put my phone away, and started the car. I had patients to save, children to protect, and a future to secure. Mark and Melissa's plans for my family were about to unravel, and I have front row seats to watch it all fall apart. As I drove to work, I thought about my children safely staying with my sister for the weekend. They had no idea their world was about to change, but I'd make sure they came through it stronger. After all, that's what mothers do. We protect our own, even when it means fighting the people we once trusted most. The night shift ahead would be busy, but I was used to handling emergencies. And compared to the crisis I'd just navigated at home, a multiple vehicle accident seemed almost straightforward. At least in the ER, I knew exactly who my enemies were. The next morning hit me like a freight train. After a grueling 12-hour shift dealing with the accident victims, I'd walked into my lawyer's office running on nothing but coffee and determination. Sarah, my lawyer and longtime friend, was already reviewing the recordings when I arrived. These are gold, Emma, she said, looking up from her laptop. The part where they discuss hiding assets, that's going to make this very easy. I sank into the leather chair across from her desk, exhaustion seeping into my bones. Mark hasn't stopped calling since last night. 27 missed calls. Let him sweat, Sarah replied, pulling out a thick folder. His mother called me this morning. She's willing to testify about Melissa's interactions with the kids if needed. Apparently, she's been keeping her own records. A knock on the door interrupted us. Mark stood there, looking disheveled in yesterday's clothes. The smug businessman facade had crumbled, replaced by something closer to panic. Emma, please, he started, but Sarah cut him off. Mr. Parker, if you want to speak with my client, you'll need to do it through proper legal channels. He ignored her, his eyes fixed on me. The recordings, Melissa says they're fake. She wouldn't say those things about our kids. I pulled out my phone, too tired for games. Would you like to hear the one from last Tuesday, when she told Emily that mommy doesn't love her enough to stay home? Mark's face crumpled. I didn't know. No, you didn't? I agreed. Because you were too busy planning your new life to notice what was happening to your children. Did you know Tyler's grades have dropped? That Emily's been having nightmares? Sarah cleared her throat. Mr. Parker, we have a proposed settlement agreement prepared. I suggest you review it with your lawyer. I watched as Mark skimmed the documents, his face growing paler with each page. Joint custody, but primary physical custody would be mine. The house would stay in my name. The children's college funds would be placed in a protected trust. This is everything, he whispered. You're taking everything. No, Mark, I corrected him. I'm protecting everything. Our children, their future, their stability. The things you were willing to sacrifice for Melissa. His phone buzzed. The look on his face as he read the message told me everything I needed to know. Let me guess, I said quietly. Melissa's not happy about the recordings. He slumped into a chair. She's leaving. Says this is too much drama. That I promised her an easy divorce and comfortable life. Not this. Sarah handed him a pen. The settlement, Mr. Parker. Either sign it now or we take this to court with all the evidence. As he reached for the pen, another knock echoed through the office. This time, it was Mark's mother, Patricia, her silver hair immaculate as always, her expression carved from stone. I thought I'd find you here, she said to Mark. The hospital board would like to speak with you. Something about ethical concerns regarding your recent behavior? Mark's head snapped up. Mom, you didn't. I didn't have to, Patricia cut in. Emily told her pediatrician about Melissa's promises and threats. The doctor, being a mandated reporter, felt obligated to inform the relevant parties. I watched as the last pieces of Mark's world crumbled around him. His carefully constructed plans, his dreams of a fresh start with Melissa, his reputation, all of it falling apart in this small office. He signed the papers without another word. As he stood to leave, Patricia blocked his path. One more thing, she said, her voice ice cold. I've spoken with Emily's therapist. We've documented every interaction between Melissa and the children. If either of you come near them without proper supervision, the recordings won't be your only problem. After they left, I finally let the tears come. Sarah pushed a box of tissues across her desk, giving me a moment to collect myself. You did good, Emma, she said softly. The kids are safe. That's what matters. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. Kids are asking about pancakes for dinner. Coming home soon. Through my tears, I smiled. Pancakes for dinner, our family's traditional comfort food. Tonight, we need it. Just one more thing, Sarah said as I gathered my things. The hospital board, they're not just concerned about Mark. They're impressed with how you handled everything while maintaining your professional responsibilities. The head nurse mentioned something about a promotion. I paused at the door, thinking about the future stretching out before us. It wouldn't be easy. Divorce never is, especially with children involved. But we would face it together, my children and I, with pancakes for dinner and the truth as our shield. First pancakes, I said. Then we'll talk about the future. 6 months later, I stood in our redecorated living room, watching Emily and Tyler help each other with homework. The changes in them were subtle but significant. Emily's nightmares had stopped and Tyler's grades were back up. Sometimes the best medicine is simply truth and stability. Mark had stuck to the custody agreement, though his visits became less frequent after Melissa publicly moved in with her ex-boyfriend Jason. The children's initial confusion had given way to understanding, helped along by their weekly sessions with Dr. Martinez, their therapist. Mom, Tyler called out, looking up from his math homework. Can we have pancakes tonight? I smiled, remembering that first night after the lawyer's office. Pancakes had become our symbol of resilience, a reminder that we could make something sweet out of life's bitter moments. Sure, buddy. But first, I have some news to share with both of you. They looked up expectantly. Emily's dark hair fell across her face, so much like her father's, but her determined expression was all mine. Remember how I've been working extra shifts lately? They nodded. Well, it's because the hospital offered me a new position. I'll be the emergency department's clinical coordinator. Does that mean more work? Tyler asked, his forehead creasing with worry. Actually, it means more regular hours. I'll be home most evenings, and we'll have more weekends together. Emily's face lit up. Really? No more overnight shifts. Very few, I promised, and Aunt Jessica will still help out when needed. The promotion had come as a surprise, though Patricia, who still served on the hospital board, later admitted she'd spoken highly of my professional conduct during the divorce. Sometimes, handling personal crises with grace has unexpected professional benefits. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark. Kids still on for this weekend? I replied with a simple yes, our communication now limited to logistics about the children. It wasn't ideal, but it was peaceful, and peace was what we needed. Later that evening, as we gathered around the kitchen island making pancakes, the doorbell rang. Patricia stood there, holding a familiar box. I found these while cleaning out my attic, she said, setting the box on our counter. I thought the children might want to see them. Inside were photo albums from when Mark and I were first married, when the kids were babies. Pictures of happier times, before ambition and selfishness tore our family apart. You're still family, Patricia said quietly, watching the kids flip through the albums. What my son did, it doesn't change that. She'd become an unexpected ally, ensuring the children maintained a connection to their father's family while fiercely protecting them from Melissa's influence. Last month, when Melissa tried to contact Tyler through social media, Patricia had handled it before I even knew about it. As we shared pancakes and memories, I realized we created something new from the ashes of my marriage, not a broken family, but a reconstructed one, stronger in its repaired places. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Sarah. Final paperwork filed. It's officially over. I excused myself for a moment, needing space to absorb this milestone. Standing in my bedroom, now painted a peaceful blue instead of the beige Mark had insisted on, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked different, stronger, more myself. The sound of laughter drifted up from the kitchen. Emily was telling Patricia about her science project, Tyler adding his own commentary between bites of pancake. This was our reality now, and it was a good one. I rejoined them, sliding back into my seat as Tyler began explaining his latest video game strategy to his grandmother. Patricia caught my eye and smiled, a look of understanding passing between us. More pancakes, Mom? Emily asked, holding up the spatula. Yes, I said, watching my daughter carefully flip the pancake, her tongue sticking out in concentration. I'd love some. Life wasn't perfect, it never is, but as I sat there with my children and their grandmother, sharing pancakes and planning weekend adventures, I knew we'd found our way to something better than perfect. We'd found our truth, our strength, and most importantly, our peace. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better. Mark and Melissa could have their drama and schemes. We had pancakes, homework, and love. In the end, we got the better deal. I sold your house. My mother-in-law's smug voice crackled through my phone. Julia needs a proper home to start her life with Daniel, and you clearly don't deserve this place. I stood in the makeshift medical tent in rural Guatemala, where I'd been volunteering for the past 3 weeks, and felt an odd sense of calm wash over me. After 8 years of marriage to Daniel, Margaret's attempts to undermine me had become almost predictable. That's interesting, I replied, keeping my voice steady as I organized medical supplies. And how exactly did you manage that? Daniel gave me power of attorney while you're off playing hero in whatever third world country you're in, she said, her satisfaction evident. The papers are already signed. Julia and Daniel will move in next week. Don't bother coming back. There's nothing here for you anymore. I couldn't help but smile, though Margaret couldn't see it. Well, good luck with that. I hope everything works out exactly as it should. My calm response clearly threw her off. What's that supposed to mean? She demanded, her voice sharp. You've lost, Amanda. Just accept it with some dignity. I ended the call and took a deep breath, looking out at the mountains surrounding our medical camp. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on me. 3 weeks ago, I left for this medical mission knowing my marriage was in trouble, but I hadn't expected Margaret to make such a bold move. Daniel, my husband of 8 years, had been distant for months, working late at his architectural firm, coming home with perfume on his clothes that wasn't mine. I found receipts for expensive restaurants I'd never been to, heard whispered phone conversations that ended abruptly when I entered the room. Then came Julia, his new assistant, 24 and fresh out of college, with her perfect smile and seemingly innocent questions about our marriage. But Margaret, she'd been working against me from day one. From the moment Daniel brought me home 8 years ago, she'd made it clear I wasn't good enough for her precious son. Never mind that I was a successful emergency room doctor, that I'd worked my way through medical school, that I'd saved lives. To Margaret, I was just the woman who took her son away. What Margaret didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd been prepared for something like this. 6 months ago, when I first suspected Daniel's affair, I'd visited my family lawyer, Eleanor Chen. We'd spent hours going over my options, securing my assets, and most importantly, protecting the house that had been in my family for generations. The house. My grandfather had built it with his own hands in 1960, a beautiful Victorian-style home overlooking the city. He passed it down to my father, who'd given it to me when I finished medical school. It was my sanctuary, my heritage, and apparently the perfect target for Margaret's latest scheme to get rid of me. I pulled out my phone again and dialed Eleanor's number. She answered on the second ring. "It's happening," I said simply. "Margaret just called to tell me she sold my house. Says Daniel gave her power of attorney." Eleanor's laugh was sharp and satisfied. "Did she now?" And I assume this power of attorney document materialized out of thin air, since we've had Daniel's actual power of attorney locked in my safe for the past 5 months. "Apparently so," I replied, feeling a wave of gratitude for my lawyer's foresight. "She says the papers are signed and Julia's moving in next week." "Well," Eleanor said, and I could hear her typing in the background, "I've just sent emails to the police, the county recorder's office, and our PI. Any attempt to sell that house without your signature is fraud, and we've got everything documented. Would you like me to proceed with pressing charges?" I thought about Margaret's smugness, about Daniel's betrayal, about Julia's innocent act. "Yes," I said firmly. "It's time they learned actions have consequences." "Consider it done," Eleanor replied. "And Amanda, the security cameras we installed caught Daniel bringing Julia to the house last week. The footage has been added to our documentation." I closed my eyes, feeling a mixture of pain and vindication. "Thank you, Eleanor. Keep me updated." After hanging up, I walked back into the medical tent where my team was preparing for afternoon rounds. The work here was real, meaningful, far from the drama Margaret was trying to create. I'd come on this mission not to run away, but to remind myself of who I was beyond Daniel's wife or Margaret's target. Dr. Santos, my colleague, looked up from a patient chart. "Everything okay, Amanda? You look like you just got some interesting news." I smiled, thinking about the storm that was about to hit back home. "Just my mother-in-law being her usual self. Nothing I can't handle." "Ah, family drama," he nodded knowingly. "Sometimes the best medicine is distance." "And documentation," I added, making him laugh. As I turned my attention back to our patients, I couldn't help but wonder what Margaret's face would look like when she realized exactly what she'd done. The house wasn't just protected legally. It was part of a historic trust, meaning any sale would have to go through a board of trustees. Trustees who, coincidentally, included Eleanor and my father's oldest friend, a retired judge. Margaret thought she was finally getting rid of me, giving my home to Daniel's young mistress. Instead, she was about to learn a valuable lesson about underestimating the wrong person. I almost felt sorry for what was coming. Almost. 2 days after Margaret's call, my phone started buzzing with frantic messages. I was suturing a young boy's arm when the first wave came through. "Amanda, we need to talk right now." "Daniel. This is ridiculous. Answer your phone." "Margaret. You're making a huge mistake. Unknown number, probably Julia." I finished the sutures, carefully bandaged the wound, and stepped outside the tent to check my voicemail. Eleanor had left a message that made me smile. "The police just arrested Margaret for attempted real estate fraud. She tried to file forged documents with the county recorder's office. Daniel's claiming he knew nothing about it, but our PI's footage shows him entering the office with her last week. They're both in quite a mess. Call me when you can." I sat down on a wooden bench outside the medical tent, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of orange and pink. Another message came through, this one from my father's friend Judge Thompson. "Your grandmother would be proud, Amanda. Margaret tried to push this sale through the historic trust board today. When I showed her the original deed and trust documents, she turned whiter than my courtroom wig. The satisfaction I felt wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. Margaret had spent years trying to push me out of Daniel's life, but this time she pushed too far." My phone rang again. "Daniel." After 8 years of marriage, I knew his patterns. He'd be trying to charm his way out of this, to make me feel like I was overreacting. This time, I decided to answer. "Amanda, baby, you need to stop this," he said immediately, his voice taking on that soothing tone he used when he wanted something. "Mom was just trying to help us. Julia and I. We're in love. Can't we handle this like adults? I watched a hummingbird dart between flowers as I replied, like adults? You mean like how you adultly had an affair with your assistant? Or how you adultly let your mother try to steal my family home? I didn't know she was going to do that, he protested weakly. Really? So you weren't with her at the county recorder's office last week? Because the security cameras say otherwise, Daniel. Silence. The house has been in my family for 3 generations, I continued, my voice steady. My grandfather built it. My father grew up there. I was born there. Did you really think I wouldn't protect it? You're being vindictive, he accused, his charm evaporating. Julia's pregnant. We need a home. The news should have hurt more than it did. Instead, I felt oddly detached. Congratulations, I'm sure Margaret will be thrilled. But you'll need to find another house. This isn't over, he threatened. Actually, it is. Check your email. My lawyer sent over the divorce papers an hour ago. And Daniel, the police want to talk to you about your role in the fraud attempt. I hung up before he could respond. Dr. Santos appeared with 2 cups of coffee, offering me one. More family drama, he asked, nodding at my phone. My husband's girlfriend is pregnant, I said, surprised at how little emotion the words carried. And my mother-in-law just got arrested for trying to steal my house. He whistled low. That's quite a day. How are you holding up? I considered the question. You know what's strange? I feel relieved, like I finally put down a heavy weight I didn't even know I was carrying. Sometimes the hardest part isn't the betrayal, he offered wisely. It's admitting to yourself that you deserve better. My phone buzzed again. Eleanor. She had news about Margaret's arrest and the investigation into Daniel's involvement. But for now, I just wanted to sit here, drink my coffee, and watch the sunset over mountains that didn't care about failed marriages or scheming mothers-in-law. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, patients to treat, lives to save, a divorce to navigate. But tonight, I had the satisfaction of knowing that sometimes the best revenge is simply being prepared. Dr. Santos raised his coffee cup to new beginnings. I smiled, clinking my cup against his. To being prepared. In the distance, thunder rolled across the mountains, promising rain and renewal. Just like the storms back home, this too would pass, leaving everything cleaner and clearer in its wake. A month later, I stood in my grandfather's, my kitchen, running my hand along the familiar marble countertop. The morning light streamed through the stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns across the floor. The house felt different now, cleaner somehow, as if Margaret's scheme had washed away the last traces of unhappiness that had lingered here. Eleanor sat at the breakfast nook, spreading files across the antique table. The judge threw the book at Margaret, she said, sliding a document toward me. Attempted real estate fraud, forgery, filing false documents. She's looking at significant fines and probation. And Daniel? Pleaded ignorance, but the evidence was clear. He's been charged as an accomplice. His firm put him on indefinite leave. Apparently, they don't appreciate partners who participate in real estate fraud. I poured us both coffee in my grandmother's old china cups. And Julia? Left town last week. Apparently, the pregnancy was as real as Margaret's power of attorney. Eleanor's eyes twinkled with barely suppressed amusement. She found another job in Seattle. The news should have hurt, but instead, I felt only a wave of relief. All those years of trying to please Margaret, of ignoring Daniel's increasing distance, of doubting myself, they seemed like a strange dream now. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Santos. Hospital board approved our proposal for the free clinic. When can you start? I smiled, showing Eleanor the message. During my time in Guatemala, Dr. Santos and I had developed a plan to open a free medical clinic in our city. The work we'd done there had reminded me of why I became a doctor in the first place, to help people, to make a difference. Life has a funny way of working out, Eleanor mused, sipping her coffee. If Margaret hadn't tried to steal your house, you might still be trapped in an unhappy marriage, working at a hospital you've grown to resent. She was right. The past month had brought more than just legal victories, it had brought clarity. I'd resigned from my old hospital position, excited to start fresh with a clinic project. The house, once a source of tension with Daniel and Margaret, had become my sanctuary again. A knock at the door interrupted our conversation. Through the stained glass, I recognized Margaret's silhouette. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. but I nodded. It was time to face this. Margaret looked smaller somehow, less intimidating than I remembered. Her perfectly coiffed hair couldn't hide the strain in her face. "Amanda," she said stiffly, "I came to apologize." I gestured for her to sit on the porch swing where my grandfather used to tell me stories. She perched on the edge, clearly uncomfortable. "I was wrong," she continued, the words seeming to physically pain her. I thought I was protecting Daniel, but I destroyed everything instead. "You never gave me a chance," I said quietly. "From the day we met, you decided I wasn't good enough." She looked out at the garden, where my grandmother's roses still bloomed. "No, I was the one who wasn't good enough. I couldn't accept that Daniel had found someone successful, independent. It reminded me of everything I'd given up to be the perfect wife and mother." The honesty surprised me, but it changed nothing. "I hope you find peace, Margaret, but I think it's best if we don't see each other again." She nodded, standing slowly. "The house, it's beautiful. I see now why you fought so hard to protect it." "It's not just about the house," I replied. "It's about standing up for yourself, about not letting others decide your worth." After she left, I returned to the kitchen where Eleanor waited. "You okay?" she asked. "Better than okay," I smiled. "I'm free." Looking around the house, I saw not just my grandfather's legacy, but my own future. The front room would make a perfect waiting area for the clinic's overflow patients. The large basement could store medical supplies. This house, which Margaret had tried to take from me, would help me give back to others. Dr. Santos was right. Sometimes the hardest part isn't the betrayal. It's admitting you deserve better. But standing here, in my grandfather's house, surrounded by generations of love and strength, I knew I finally learned that lesson. Eleanor gathered her files, pausing at the door. "You know, when you first came to me about protecting the house, I thought you were being paranoid. I'm glad you proved me wrong." I hugged her, grateful for her guidance through the storm. Sometimes the best defense is being prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. As the afternoon sun painted the walls with light through the stained glass windows, I felt at peace. Margaret, Daniel, Julia, they had all underestimated me, and in doing so, had set me free. My grandfather had built this house as a legacy of love. Now it would become a legacy of healing, both for me and for others. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well, on your own terms, in a house built with love and protected by wisdom. "She's dangerous, officer. Look at these bruises." My mother-in-law, Eleanor, held out her arm dramatically, showing off what looked like fresh bruises. I stood in our doorway, utterly stunned as two police officers took notes while she sobbed convincingly. "My name is Olivia Parker, and at 34, I was watching my mother-in-law try to destroy my life with perfectly crafted lies." "Mrs. Parker, we need you to come down to the station," one of the officers said, his face stern. I nodded numbly, my mind racing to understand how I'd ended up here. Just yesterday, everything had been normal, or what passed for normal in a house I shared with my husband James, and unfortunately, his mother. "I'll get my purse," I said calmly, turning to go back inside. That's when I saw it. Eleanor's phone lying on the kitchen counter, its screen still lit up. As I passed by, a message notification caught my eye. Perfect timing. "James is at work, and the police bought everything." My hand trembled as I picked up the phone. Eleanor had always been careless with her passwords, using the same one for everything. James's birthday. One quick swipe, and I was in. The message was from a group chat titled Operation Homecoming. Time seemed to slow as I scrolled through the messages, my heart pounding with each revelation. There it was, weeks of conversations between Eleanor and my sister-in-law Victoria, meticulously planning every detail. Once the abuse claims stick, James will have to choose between us and her. The house will be ours, and that little gold digger will be gone for good. Eleanor had written just 3 days ago. "Perfect," Victoria had replied. "I've already started telling everyone how worried I am about her mental state. Nobody will believe her when she tries to defend herself." The timestamps showed they'd been planning this for months. Every accidental bruise Eleanor had shown up with, every concerned call from Victoria about my supposed unstable behavior, it was all orchestrated. I quickly took photos of the chat with my own phone, my hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Thank God for my job as a digital forensic specialist. I knew exactly how to document everything without leaving traces. "Mrs. Parker?" The officer called from the door. "We need to go now." "Coming." I called back, setting Eleanor's phone exactly where I'd found it. As I walked past her, I saw the triumphant gleam in her eyes, the slight upturn of her lips that anyone else would have missed. She thought she'd won. What Eleanor didn't know was that 3 months ago, I'd installed security cameras throughout our house. Not because I was paranoid, but because James had been worried about recent break-ins in the neighborhood. Every incident Eleanor had reported was captured on video, showing exactly how she created those bruises when she thought no one was watching. At the police station, I sat calmly as they questioned me. "Mrs. Parker, these are serious allegations. Your mother-in-law has documented several instances of abuse." "I understand," I replied, maintaining my composure. "I'd like to contact my lawyer now." Eleanor's plan had one fatal flaw: she'd never bothered to learn what I did for a living. As a digital forensics specialist, I spent my days helping companies protect themselves from cyber threats and document digital evidence. I knew exactly how to build an airtight case. My lawyer, Patricia Jean, arrived within the hour. I'd worked with her firm on several cases, and she knew my reputation for meticulous documentation. As we sat in the interview room, I pulled out my phone. "Before we continue," Patricia said, "my client has some evidence she'd like to share." The officers looked skeptical until I started playing the videos. There was Eleanor, carefully applying makeup to create bruises. Another clip showed her practicing her crying in the bathroom mirror. But the piece de resistance was the audio from last week, when she called Victoria to gloat about how well their plan was working. "The timestamps and metadata are all intact," I explained professionally. "I can provide a full forensic report demonstrating these files haven't been altered." The officers exchanged glances. "Why do you have these recordings, Mrs. Parker?" "Home security," I replied simply. "After the break-ins on our street, we installed cameras. All residents were notified, including Eleanor. She signed the acknowledgement form herself." I watched their expressions shift from suspicion to realization. Eleanor had walked right into her own trap, and she didn't even know it yet. "There's more," I added, pulling up the photos of the group chat. "This is a conversation between my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, detailing their plan to frame me for abuse and take my house." As the officers reviewed the evidence, I thought about James. He was at work, probably worried sick after Eleanor's frantic call about her abusive daughter-in-law. He had no idea his mother and sister had been manipulating him for months, playing on his protective instincts to turn him against me. "Mrs. Parker," the senior officer said finally, "we'll need copies of all this evidence. And we'd owe you an apology." I nodded, but my mind was already racing ahead to the next steps. Eleanor and Victoria thought they were so clever, but they'd never faced someone who knew how to fight back on their own turf. The digital trail they'd left would be their undoing. As I left the police station that evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Eleanor to the family group chat. "Olivia's been taken in for questioning. It's only a matter of time now. Keep James busy. He doesn't need to know the details yet." I smiled, thinking of the security cameras silently recording at home, capturing every moment of Eleanor's performance. Sometimes the best revenge isn't fighting back immediately. It's letting your opponents think they're winning while you gather everything you need to take them down completely. The real show was about to begin, and I had front row seats to their downfall. The next morning, I woke up in our guest bedroom to find several missed calls from James. I'd chosen not to go home last night, letting Eleanor think her plan was working. Instead, I'd stayed busy, compiling all my evidence into an airtight case. "Olivia, where are you? Mom's hysterical, saying you threatened her after the police let you go. Please call me back." James's voice message was tense, worried. He still believed his mother's act. I closed my eyes, remembering how we'd met 5 years ago. James had been different then, before Eleanor moved in with us temporarily after her divorce. Before Victoria started visiting more frequently, always whispering in his ear about how I was changing, becoming unstable. My phone buzzed with a new notification from the security system. Eleanor was in the kitchen, talking to Victoria, who'd apparently come over first thing in the morning. I opened the live feed. "Everything's going perfectly," Eleanor was saying, stirring her coffee. "James is devastated. Completely believes you about Olivia's mental state. Once she's gone, we can sell this place and get something bigger, just the 3 of us." Victoria nodded eagerly. "And with her history of abuse, she won't get a penny in the divorce. I can't believe how easy this was." I smiled, watching them celebrate prematurely. They had no idea I'd already sent everything to my lawyer. Patricia was probably filing the restraining orders right now. My phone rang. James again. This time I answered. "Where are you?" he demanded. "Mom's pressing charges, Olivia. She says you came back last night and threatened her. Victoria saw everything." "Did she?" I kept my voice calm. "That's interesting because I have proof of exactly where I was last night. But more importantly, I have proof of something else. Check your email, James. I just sent you something you need to see." I'd spent hours compiling the evidence into a clear, chronological presentation. The security footage, the group chat messages, audio recordings of their planning sessions, everything pointing to a calculated conspiracy. "What is this?" he asked, his voice uncertain. "The truth," I replied simply. "Watch it all, James. Then we'll talk." I hung up and opened my laptop, checking the security feed again. Eleanor and Victoria were still in the kitchen, but now they were checking their phones frantically. My lawyer must have sent the cease and desist letters. She couldn't have proof, Victoria was saying, her voice shrill. We were so careful. Eleanor's face had gone pale. "The cameras. The ones they install for security. You don't think?" "Those cameras can't record audio," Victoria snapped. "And anyway, we only talked in the garden or my house." I smiled again. They didn't know about the garden cameras or the fact that their phones had been automatically connecting to my home's Wi-Fi, backing up their conversations to my secure server. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Restraining orders granted. Police are on their way to serve them now." Perfect timing. On the security feed, I watched as 2 police officers approached our front door. Eleanor answered, her usual confident smile faltering as they handed her the papers. "This is ridiculous," she screeched. "She's lying. Victoria, tell them." But Victoria was backing away, her face ashen as she read the documents. The officers were explaining that they had evidence of their conspiracy, including the false police report from yesterday. Both women would need to leave the premises immediately. James's car pulled into the driveway. He looked shell-shocked as he got out, probably still processing everything I'd sent him. I watched through the cameras as he walked in, looking between his mother, sister, and the police officers. "Is it true?" he asked Eleanor, his voice hollow. "Did you and Victoria plan all this? Try to frame my wife?" "James, honey, you don't understand," Eleanor started, reaching for him. "We were trying to protect you. She's changed you, taking you away from your family." "The only ones trying to destroy this family are you and Victoria," he replied, stepping back from her touch. "I saw the videos, Mom. I heard your conversations. How could you do this?" That was my cue. I gathered my things and drove home, arriving just as the police were escorting Eleanor and Victoria out. They froze when they saw me, their faces a mix of fury and fear. "You!" Eleanor spat. "You planned this." I smiled calmly. "No, Eleanor, you planned this. I just made sure everyone could see exactly what you were doing." As they were led away, James stood in the doorway, looking lost. I walked past him into our house, setting my bag down in the entryway that had witnessed so much drama in the past 24 hours. "Olivia," he started, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I should have seen what they were doing. I should have believed in you." I turned to face him, feeling both stronger and more tired than I had in months. "Yes, you should have. But right now, we both need time to process this. I'll be staying in the guest room until we figure things out." He nodded, understanding that trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. As I walked upstairs, I checked my phone one last time. Patricia had sent another update. Eleanor and Victoria were being charged with filing false police reports, conspiracy, and harassment. Their perfect plan had backfired spectacularly. In the guest room, I sat on the bed and finally let myself feel everything I'd been holding back. The hurt, the anger, the vindication. It all washed over me in waves. But underneath it all was a sense of peace. I protected myself, exposed the truth, and done it all without stooping to their level. Tomorrow would bring me challenges, healing my marriage, dealing with the legal aftermath, rebuilding trust. But for now, I could rest knowing that sometimes the best revenge is simply letting the truth come to light. 6 months after Eleanor and Victoria's failed scheme, I sat in our newly renovated living room, sipping coffee and reviewing the final court documents. The criminal case against them had concluded with both women accepting plea deals, probation, mandatory counseling, and restraining orders that would keep them far from our lives. The house felt different now. We repainted every room, replaced the furniture Eleanor had chosen, and transformed the space into something that was truly ours again. The security cameras remained, though now they were just part of our home's protection rather than silent witnesses to manipulation. James and I had spent these months in therapy, both individually and as a couple. He'd moved into the guest room initially, understanding that trust needed to be rebuilt slowly. We had long, difficult conversations about family loyalty, boundaries, and why he'd been so quick to believe his mother's lies. "I keep thinking about all the signs I missed," he said one evening during dinner. "The way they'd whisper when you left the room, how Mom would constantly remind me of how she sacrificed everything for me. I was so blind." I reached across the table and took his hand. We both learned valuable lessons. I learned to speak up sooner, and you learned that sometimes the people closest to us can be the ones who hurt us most. The hardest part had been dealing with the extended family. Eleanor and Victoria had spent years crafting their narrative about me, and some relatives still weren't sure what to believe. But as more details emerged during the court proceedings, including the full extent of their plotting, support slowly shifted in our favor. My sister-in-law's teenage daughter, Lily, had reached out to me privately. "I always knew something was wrong with how Mom and Grandma treated you," she confessed. "I found Mom's burner phone once with all these notes about their plans. I was too scared to say anything." I'd hugged her tight, assuring her that none of it was her responsibility. Now she visited us regularly, finding in our home the stability her own mother couldn't provide. One afternoon, while sorting through old photos, I found a picture from our wedding day. Eleanor stood between James and me, her smile now obviously forced. Victoria was on his other side, already plotting perhaps. I started to toss it away, but James stopped me. "Keep it," he said softly, "as a reminder of how far we've come." He was right. We were stronger now, more united. The conspiracy that was meant to destroy us had ultimately forced us to confront the cracks in our foundation and rebuild something better. Last week, we received a letter from Eleanor's counselor, part of her probation requirements. She'd written us an apology, though it still rang hollow with justifications and excuses. Victoria hadn't bothered to write at all, apparently still convinced she'd done nothing wrong. "Some people never change," my therapist observed when I shared this with her. "But you've changed, grown stronger. That's what matters." She was right. The woman I was before would have kept quiet, tried to accommodate Eleanor's increasingly outrageous behavior, doubted herself when Victoria spread rumors about my mental state. But I'd learned to stand my ground, to trust my instincts, and to fight back intelligently rather than emotionally. James and I finally moved back into our master bedroom last month. As we lay there one night, he turned to me in the darkness. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For fighting for us, even when I didn't deserve it. For being smarter and stronger than them. For giving me a chance to make things right." I snuggled closer to him, feeling truly at peace in our home for the first time in years. We fought for us. That's what matters now. This morning, I disabled the security system's constant recording feature. We still have cameras for safety, but I no longer feel the need to document every moment. The threat has passed, and we've emerged stronger on the other side. Eleanor and Victoria's plan to take our home have failed spectacularly, but they'd unintentionally given us something valuable, a chance to rebuild our marriage on a stronger foundation of trust, understanding, and mutual respect. As I sit here now, watching the sunset through windows no longer clouded by tension and fear, I realize that sometimes the happy ending isn't about winning the battle. It's about growing stronger through the fight. Our home isn't just a house anymore. It's a testament to resilience, truth, and the power of standing your ground when others try to tear you down. James comes home from work, bringing takeout and a warm smile. We've started having dinner together every night, talking openly about our days, our feelings, our future. It's a simple thing, but it represents everything we almost lost and fought so hard to save. "Happy?" he asks, setting the food down. I look around our home, remembering the darkness we emerged from, and smile. "Yes," I reply, "we are."